Okay, we're now resuming at verse 8. Just going through the translation, why my translation differs in certain places versus what's published. The main reason is to bring out nuances so that you can track this better and see the fit of Psalm 90 with other passages in Scripture. And the other reason is to fit the meter. And the third reason is that in some cases the translations are just plain wrong, and this is going to be one of them. These are the two Hebrew alternate spellings for set. Okay, and of course that's a play on Seth. All right, because this is still the first voting period in history, and so I translated it Set. Now, usually the translators will say a point, because they're trying to make it sound more majestic. Okay, but if it sounds majestic but you're not getting the meaning of the passage, that's not a good translation, okay? Set does mean a point, but Set is his name. All right? Moses is stressing the fact that this is Seth's name appointed to carry. And unfortunately, in our English Bibles, we don't bother to put footnotes enough or to annotate enough what the names in the Genesis 5 roster mean. My pastor stressed this 1,000 times when he was going over Genesis. He said, you got to track the meaning of the names. They give you important doctrine about what was going on at that time, because the Bible's laconic, the people had to memorize it orally, and they would be pondering and musing over the meaning of the names. But if we are just transliterating the names, we don't know that information. So that's why I wanted to do this. And I really, if I wanted to be really, I should have capitalized that to Set. All right? But, I didn't. And so you can maybe come up with something else. I can't say Yusef, which is really what he's trying to do. Our twisting sins on display. But I had to say Set, hoping that, the sound play will be caught, because that's exactly what Moses is doing here. Excuse me. He's using a real verb, okay, Shet, okay, for the sound play. And it's a question of whether you had that spelling or this spelling. It's still the same number of syllables, all right? So, you only count one of those words to count the syllables. All right, the next word, of course, is our famous awonotenu. And awon means a sin that twists. Unfortunately, it's translated iniquity, so you have no clue. I hate it when they translate it with iniquity. Iniquity to us in English is hidden. Okay, a hidden sin. Or something that's somehow less than sin. It's a lower class of sin. It's not lower class, and it doesn't tell you anything. Awonotenu, awon means to twist, to take something that's straight and to garble it up. In this case, it's a garbling up of the truth in order to suit what you want it to mean. So you're twisting the truth. It's a sin that twists. So as far as I'm concerned, iniquity is a bad translation, should be stricken from the Bible. And say for what it is. It's a twisting sin. Awon, right here, means to twist. A twisting sin. That's what it is. That's how I translated it. Okay. Now, this, negedeka, does mean before you. But it's got more meaning than that. Neged is a verb. Means to disclose. All right, it's used, for example, in Genesis 3:11, which is it's not just disclose, but it's like to tell on. In other words, our twisting sins tell on us. Our twisting sins, expose us. And in Genesis 3:11, Satan's basically pretending that God is somehow hiding information about them being naked. And so God the Son talking to Adam in Genesis 3:11 is like repeating what Adam was told by Satan, Who told you that it was, a sin to be naked is really what he's saying. But you can't see that in English. Okay, neged means to expose, to tell on. It means to tell also and disclose, but it also means to tell on, and that's what is being said here. Our twisting sins on display. Our sins are telling on us before you. So I had to add this, on display before. It also fit the meter. It's not just before. It's translated in English Bibles as before, or in your presence. Okay, but it means more than that. And so I'm sticking with this. These are things that I think are wrong with existing translations because they don't bring out some of the nuance that's needed. And I also happen to need it to get the right number of syllables here, 12. All right. Now this one, you'll see in some translations, this is for secrets, amenu. And they know it means secrets, and they usually translate the word secrets. Okay, things that we hide. All right. This is going to be really important when we get to Ephesians 1:3 through 14, because Paul's making a joke about this when he talks about mysterion. All right. It isn't just secret sins. Some of the Bibles stick in the word our secret sins because they're saying, okay, well, this is sins, so this is sins. Well, yeah, it includes sins, but it's more than that. It's our secrets that we don't talk about, things that we hide from people because we want them to have a good opinion of us. It isn't necessarily just sins. It's like shortfalls or things we feel guilty about or things that we feel inferior about. All right? And then some Bibles say, in the light of your presence. Well, that's part of it. But again, it's word position. All right? Okay? See, lama'or. That's the word for light. Bapeka. It's positioned in such a way that our secrets are not hidden to God, which of course is the meaning. Then you get that out of the English translations. But it's also got the connotation of, God being light. Now, obviously that's true too. It's got both. So that's why I say our secrets are light, which is a verb in English, or an adjective in English, in your presence. All right, now if you can come up with a better way to get that dual entendre between our secrets are illuminated because God is omniscient and the fact that God is light, be my guest as to how you want to improve on that. But that's why I did it. I wanted to get that dual entendre there. Okay? That God is light and nothing's hidden from him. All right, because that's what's conveyed by this being here in the middle. All right, next verse, verse 9. For our days all turn. Okay, this is panu. Okay, and that's really important. This is a famous word in Judaism and elsewhere in the Bible. For turning away, it means to turn. Because it comes from panim, for face. It's wherever your face goes. So if your face is moving, you're turning with your face, because it's attached to your body. It's either turning toward or turning away. And it's frequently used, especially in Isaiah 53:6, which Isaiah is going to be playing back to this verse, for turning away from God. Each one turns to his own way in Isaiah 53:6. It's the same verb. Okay, Ishla darko panin in Hebrew. Paninu. All right, we are turning. We're turning away is what that means. Okay, so for all our days turn, it's got this connotation of turning away from God. All right, and then we come to our very pregnant. This is the second use of it, where it talked about ever. This is evrateka. This is another. Ever and evrateka are not the same word. Evra versus ever. Evra is anger, okay, fury really, okay, the fury of God being shown by the Passover people, the fury of God on behalf of the Passover people against the Egyptians. Ever, evra, okay, ever, the Passover people, evra, God's anger on behalf of, for, defending the Passover people. And both of them have a connotation of overflow. All right, And bear in mind that this is a verse here, here, and here. And that's why they're highlighted in gray here, here, and here. This is the Noahic voting period. All right? When Noah's voting just before the flood, and the flood results as a result of Noah's vote. You know, because he gets the flood as his 600th birthday present. So overflow is a really important word to stick in the text. And some of the translators recognize that. They say something like overflowing anger. It's really important to stress that there's a word flow in here. It's an anger that's an outpouring. And fury is a really good word too, but fury alone is not going to cut it when you've got the wordplay about ever. Okay, and they usually use the word. So that's why I say fury's overflow. And again, it's to make the meter work. Okay, that's the first 12 syllables right here. Okay, and then we end our years with growling, moaning. Hageh is usually translated moaning in English Bibles, but it also has a connotation of growling, grumbling, being upset. And of course that ties back to dried up. All right. Yavesh. All right. So I added the word growling first of all because I needed it to have this enough syllables, but it's also in it's also in the meaning of it. Okay. They might say something like a sigh. It's not just a sigh. You know, I don't know how many complainers you lived with in your lifetime, but I've lived around quite a few. Oh, my life is no good. It's that kind of sighing. Okay? Kvetching in modern Yiddish. Oh, you know, this isn't really very good. I've had better. You know, it's the whole concept of moaning, growling, kvetching. And, you know, the sigh thing is designed to get your empathy. Oh, you know, it's okay, I'll be all right. That kind of moaning. And beneath it really is the growling. Okay? That's what Hayah has in it. So that's why I translated it that way. Okay? Now we come to verse 10. Oh, this is really good. Okay. Verse 10. Shavi'im. Bad 70. 70 is the voting period. And there's just really no way you can. I need to stick in extra words to say, hi, he's talking about the voting period here. Because, see, this is the Noahic voting period right flat in the middle of it. There's no way I can put that in the verse. But that's what he's talking about. So that's why it's got the wavy line. Okay? Because at the time Moses is talking, and as a result of the voting period, man's life expectancy goes down, as you see when you look at the Genesis 11 roster. Okay, I stuck in the word allotted to get the syllable count right. All right, and R, which in English you really don't need that, but you need it to fill out the syllables. Allotted, of course, is what Moses means by this. Okay, these are the years that we get. Okay, 70 years. And, you know, it's repeated in Hebrew, and in English that's not very euphonious, so I cut it out, and besides, I wanted to make sure that the allotment idea was included. Okay? That's where that comes in. And or maybe of great health. That some English Bibles say great strength, but it's talking about the strength of your health. Okay? See? Right here? That's talking about the strength of your health. Okay, 80 years. So, you know, what kind of strength is it? Does it mean if you're able to lift 2,000 pounds? No. It's talking about the strength of your health. So I think that's a better translation, okay? But here is where I had to make a huge difference from the rest of them. The English Bibles come up with this really insipid. They still convey the idea, but it's so diluted that you just don't get it. All right? Strutting. This is Rahab. You know, Rahab, the harlot. Strutting. That's what it really means. Now, what's really funny about this is that this is presaging what's going to happen to Israel under Rehoboam. Rehoboam means wide, like spacious. Okay, but Rehoboam is a Rahav person. He's constantly strutting around. He was a real jackass. Okay, and it's because of him that Israel split. So this is like a prophetic, a little prophetic verb for how Israel's going to be strutting. Okay, and it's therefore going to split. See, strutting. All right. Strutting is a really good word for it in English, and I wish they had used it. And plus, he's being onomatopoetic. It's only got 6 syllables. Okay, so I had to give it 6 syllables. Strutting, writhing, and trouble. The word for writhing here is amal. It's used in Isaiah 53:11 for labor pains. Okay, it means all kinds of labor, but it's specifically used in Psalms and in Job for pregnancy labor. And that's exactly what Isaiah is depicting in Isaiah 53:11, because he's talking about him who had no descendants bearing all the kids on the cross. Okay, me'amal nafsho is the text in Hebrew of Isaiah 53:11. All right, at the very beginning of the verse. So amal here is being picked up by Isaiah. And the idea of writhing, you're writhing in labor pains. And man is writhing, he's strutting, oh, how proud he is of what he does. He's writhing and writhing to achieve all these things. And at the end, all he has, and get this is so cute, is awen. See, where do we have this? Awonotenu up here, sins. And sins give birth to what? Awen. Awon gives birth to awen. Okay, sin gives birth to trouble, and Job actually uses this, gives birth to trouble, and the sparks fly upward. All right, time of Jacob's trouble, tribulation, awen. Why? It's due to awon. See, if Hebrew is your native language, you pick up on these things, just like we pick up on English. You know, if English is your native tongue and you hear a word that sounds similar and there's a sort of humor in it, you pick up on that. So that's why I left it at trouble, which is typical English translation, because I didn't know how to make a good play on twisting sins, which is really what I need to do. If you can think of a good synonym for trouble that picks up on the fact that it's due to sins, let me know. Okay? And then we have Kish, and I should have highlighted this in yellow. Kish means suddenly, and it's usually translated with some kind of soon or quickly. Well, it really means suddenly. It means gone here today, gone tomorrow. This is a very important rapture verb. You say, well, rapture's not in the Old Testament. No, it isn't. But the idea, the precedent for it is. See, Israel left in haste. This means in haste. Hish, it comes from hush. And the phrase that's usually used in the Old Testament is ahishana. Okay? Hish. See, you got sh. It's suddenly. Hish. Like whoosh. Okay? The suddenness of the Exodus is paralleled by the suddenness of the rapture. See, the rapture has a legal precedence, otherwise there couldn't be one. And you have the suddenness of Egypt, leaving Egypt, okay? We have the suddenness of the body of Christ going up. Can't predict when, all right? There was no prediction at the time. I mean, it was a very short prediction, but we're not subject to any prediction as church. But the idea of suddenly it's going to happen, it's been warned about, and next thing you know, boy, oh boy, it's just going to happen. So that's why they had the night before, they have to get all dressed up as if they're going to be leaving any second. And they have to leave, and they have to eat in a hurry without even letting the bread rise. All right? That's the precedent of the idea for church. It's our Exodus. And it's based on this Exodus. We have our own contract and our own terms, but legal precedence demands that there be something in the past that justifies a current law. And the law for church changes, but at the same time it's based on the old story. See, the Exodus occurred because Egypt rejected the Jews. The Jews initially said, hi, we need to go worship our God in the mountain. And Pharaoh refused it. Okay, fine, then we're leaving forever. Okay, we're down here as church and we're saying, hi, God is coming back, worship him now. And the world rejects us, and okay, fine, we're leaving forever. This is tantamount in modern day terms to recalling a diplomatic ambassador. And it can happen suddenly without warning, and that's what Greek word takos and taku mean. Unfortunately, in English Bibles, takos and taku, which means suddenly without warning, are translated quickly or soon, and so there's no end of confusion about, well, the Lord hasn't come back yet, but he said he'd come soon. Well, that's because it's a mistranslation. It doesn't mean soon. It means suddenly. 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 Okay? And then, of course, fly. And that's translated in English Bible, so we don't have much of a problem with that. Okay? So, it looks like I'm going to have to stop. Okay, here we are again. Now we're at verse 90:11, and there's a kind of big change here versus the translations that you see, and I want to show you why. I'm trying to universally translate apeka with rage. It's usually translated anger. But again, because of the one syllable, I want to use the word rage, and really that's what it means. Anger's okay, but anger's too tame a word in English. Rage is really a better word. And of course, that's an apophathism with respect to God. All right. And usually in English Bibles, you'll see, who knows the power of your anger. Okay. And that's really kind of what it says, but, the words don't necessarily mean what they sound like they mean, even if they're the right words, okay? Me, what, or who, here it's who, yada, okay? Who knows? Oz, strength, power, might. Vapeka, your anger. Now, when you stop to think about that, it's operating on two levels. First level is, we don't know what God knows, and that's how we usually think about this when we just read it like this. But understand that the whole focus here has been turning, overflow, twisted sins. So when it says, who knows your rage's power, it's like if you're living against God, you're going to know the power of his anger. That's the point here. All right? Who knows the power of your anger? It's a sort of rhetorical question. In other words, who's going to receive the wrath of God? All right? He's been building up. You set our twisting sins on display. Remember, that was the ending of the first Adamic voting period. And then here we're in the flood voting period. So this is like a little testimony about why the flood happened. All right? It was set up before because that was the announcement of the flood 1,000 years in advance. But this is the actual voting period that Noah voted during which the flood occurred. Okay? So that's why we got words like overflow and turn. Those are evocative of drowning waters and flooding, and that's why 70 is used, because the life expectancy changed due to the flood. And that's where we got things like strutting and writhing and trouble to tell us what was going on with people during that time. And then fly, gone up we fly. Okay, well, your soul flies up to heaven, as it were. And you're also flying off the earth. When the water hits you, you're tumbling over. Okay? So, to close out the Noahic voting period, who knows your rage's power? Those who oppose God know God's rage. Okay? It's rhetorical. It's not like who can understand. A lot of the translators, they weren't paying attention to the context. Okay? Yadea means to know, but it also means to understand, to grasp, to comprehend. Okay? And they're thinking that's what they're talking about. No, it's who gets it. You will know that I am God. How many times is that in the Old Testament? And how many times is it said in the context of some kind of punishment? I got to punish you, and after that, you'll know that I'm God. In other words, God's got to punish you before you wake up and smell the coffee. That's what, here represented by the Noahic actor, is being said here, because this is still the Noahic period. This begins Moses' own autobiographical vote. But this is still Noahic. So it's all still talking about the flood. So who knows the power of your anger? Okay? And then he's explaining why the anger happens. And this is where the translators get it. They sort of get the idea, but they're not cluing into it, okay? Like the respect, and they recognize it's respect due you. And this is yare, okay? Yare means to be afraid, but just like in Greek, it's got a connotation of respect, awe. So it's not fear like you're afraid of. It's fear like you respect so much. Okay, well, God respects his own integrity. It's your respect. It's that play on words, okay? You got this ka ending, teka. And the question that's very cute, and this is often the issue with Hebrew, are we looking at God as the object, or are we looking at God as the subject? Especially when it's coupled with a noun. Usually, and that's how they're translating it here, it's subject. The suffix means that the noun is describing the subject. But it's always got some kind of connotation about object in there. Especially when it's a verbal noun like this. This is a verbal noun. And God is not afraid. God does not fear. Of course, you could say, well, respect. And so a lot of the translators opt for saying, okay, well, this is the respect of the human race due to God. So they're taking teka here and assuming that God is the object. Well, that's a fair thing to do. But here, it's God's own respect first. Okay? Because this is like the respect to you, or due you, or from you, your own respect, your anger. See, he's setting up a parallel between respect and anger, and the translators recognize this, but they're not quite sure what context to put it in. Well, here's the context to put it in. Here's us being all snotty, okay? And he's already said that, your fury's overflow, and of course it's got that, again, the dual connotation, evrateka, our fury at you, okay, our twisting sins, this whole duality's going on. Okay, so he's uniting the duality to explain it. This is what we should be doing, and the translators generally got that idea. So if we're not doing the respect thing, if we're not doing the yare, that's yare, then we get evrateka, and evrateka, which is also right here, evrateka. Okay, and that's where hever comes from, ever, evra. It's a word, it's a sound play on Hebrew and anger, which I'm translating fury. I'm trying to be consistent. And I translated fury here too. It's the same word, evrateka. Evrateka. And so I insert the word comes to fill out the meter, but that's the idea, is that if there's no respect, then the wrath of God applies, because it's explaining the flood. See? Your fury's overflow. Evrateka is always talking about a flowing anger, an overflowing anger. That's why hever is so evocative. It's the same root in Hebrew. Okay? The flow, flood, flow, overflow, Passover, pass through, pass beyond, due to what? God's anger at Egypt. All those miracle things were all judgments. And apeka. And we're angry at God, so God mirrors our anger I mean, God doesn't actually get angry, but he acts as though he does. Okay, that's language of accommodation. It's called an anthropopathism. God mirrors back to you your attitude toward him. So, you either respect or you get the wrath of God. That's a frequent refrain in the Old Testament. It's a parallel between the two. Okay? So that's why I translate it this way. Who knows your rage's power? As a rhetorical question. And now he's answering that question. From respect, your fury comes. In other words, God respects righteousness, and we're violating it, so we get the wrath of God. And, the translators kind of figure that out. It's just the way they translate it is sort of clumsy, and I think this is a better translation, frankly. Okay, so that closes the Noahic voting period. So this is not the Noahic voting period testimony. Okay, which got, overflow and turn and secrets and display. A flood covers, but it also displays because the water is moving, okay, the twisting, and set for Seth, all right, strutting mankind, writhing in trouble, and we're going to fly through the air with the water hitting us, and as a result we only live like 7 years. Because we came to know your rage's power. Why? Because we didn't respect, so we get your fury. Okay? Now we enter the Moses' personal voting period, and this gets really cute too, and it's really important to see this all in context. Can I get all the verses? Yeah, they're all showing. So we're going to cover that next.